We have the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation by Councilwoman Coonrod, if she so chooses.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, move agenda. Okay, we have no special presentations today. Can I get approval on the minutes? Okay, minutes will stand without objection. We have ordinances on final reading. Madam Clerk, if you read item A.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 21, Section 21-137, abatement by city and lien for costs thereof, notice, hearing, appeals, subsection C, relating to service of notice.
Okay, council,
Second.
it's been moved and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item B.
An ordinance amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 17, Section 17-3, 2018 International Fire Code 912.3.1, and by adding a new Section 1743 requiring structures to have a key lock box installed on the exterior of the structure for fire safety purposes.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Item C.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 2844 Evelyn Drive from R1 residential zone to M2 light industrial zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Move approval. Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Item D.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 2701 Benton Avenue from M1 manufacturing zone to RTZ residential townhouse, zero lot line zone, subject to certain conditions.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Item E.
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened right-of-way in an alley located in the 3800 block of St. Elmo Avenue as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Thank you. Motion has been properly moved and second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, ordinance is on first reading under finance, item A.
An ordinance hereinafter, also known as the fiscal year 2023-2024 operations budget, providing revenue for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30, 2024, appropriating same to the payment of the expenses of the municipal government, fixing the rate of taxation on all taxable property in the city, and the time taxes and privileges are due, how they shall be paid, when they shall become delinquent taxes and privileges, amending Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 2, Section 267, relative to paid leave for active duty training, and to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 31, Sections 3136, 3137, 3141, and 3143, Sections 31-322, and 31-354.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Move approval, ma'am. Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All of,
Mr. President, I think we have to have roll calls.
roll call.
Yes, sir, on this, on the budget vote, yes,
All
sir.
right. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Ledford? Councilman Hester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs?
Yes.
Councilwoman Knoll?
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod? Vice Chair Hill?
Yes.
Chair Dotley?
Yes.
7 yeses. I'm sorry, 9 yeses.
Yes, thank you. Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item B.
An ordinance appropriating, authorizing, and allocating funds to the capital improvements budget for the fiscal year 2023-2024.
Move approval, ma'am. Roll call, please. Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Coonrod? Councilwoman Knoll?
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs?
Yes.
Councilman Hester?
Yes.
Councilman Ledford? Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Henderson? Vice Chair Hill?
Yes.
Chair Dotley?
Yes.
9 yeses.
All right, motion passes. So we get into planning items. Madam Clerk, planning item A. I'm sorry, planning item C.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 7707 Lee Highway from C2 Convenience Commercial Zone to UGC Urban Residential Zone.
Okay, Councilwoman, I'm sorry, is the applicant present? All right. Is opposition present? Well, all right now. All right, opposition. Councilwoman Byrd.
Yes, ma'am. So there are actually two together,
Okay.
and much of the discussion goes with both of them. So I would like the other one read. I know that they have to be approved or disapproved separately, but I think it would be helpful not to replay the record. And if I could have the second one read.
Absolutely. Madam Clerk, item D. The alternate version.
Alternate version of item C.
Item D.
Oh, D, I'm sorry. An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 7717 Lee Highway from R1 Residential Zone and C2 Convenience Commercial Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay. All right. And Madam Clerk, just for clarity, to ensure we read the right version of item C, could you read the alternate version for item C?
Yes. An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 7707 Lee Highway from C2 Convenience Commercial Zone to UGC Urban Residential Zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right, thank you so much. Now for item D, is the applicant present? Okay, is opposition present for that 77, I believe 17 Lee Highway location? All right. All right, Councilwoman Byrd.
So what I would like to do is I would like the applicant to present whatever he wishes to present, and then I'd like to add some conditions, and then see where it goes from there.
All right. Okay, get 7 minutes. If we get 7 minutes on the clock, please.
And if I might, before I get started, I think there was presentation material that was provided to council that hopefully we could go through the slides for this particular case.
I don't particularly want the layout of the land. What I want is what you're really planning on doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it would be helpful to sort of,
Sure.
going through on that.
Could we get 7 minutes on the clock, please?
And do I use this then to
Also, please be aware your 7 minutes has started.
okay. All right, so appreciate council hearing the application for this particular case. It is taking property from C2, two hotels on Lee Highway, to UGC. The purpose of this is to create two apartment complexes here that are currently hotels, which are a blight on the community. I don't think anybody would argue that particular point. These two hotels have not been good neighbors to the community and have created numerous issues as it relates to police calls and homelessness. If you notice here, these were photographs that were taken in March, and this is in the area of where the neighborhood is, and you can hardly see back through there in March, when you really do not have any leaves or vegetation to speak of, any of the two hotels that are in question that are talking about being converted. So there's been a lot of discussion made on this request, and let me just state that this is, for the record, to be clear, the following. This is not a government-driven or subsidized housing development. This is a market rate. The plan is to take the hotels and to convert them over to be apartments. The request is to rezone these from C2 to UGC, and we put forth a number of conditions that we have put to council as it relates to conditions that we would adhere to if this case were to be passed. Now, if you notice from the slide here, you will see that the distance from the hotels currently to any nearby resident is at least 290 feet, 275 feet. So we're a far distance away. We are not in someone's backyard. We are neighboring, but there is quite a bit of distance between this proposed development, proposed use, and those hotels and the residents that are out this way. Now, This gives you an idea of the blight and the problem that these two hotels have been. This is the number of police calls at 7707, which is a southern property, since 2019. This is the yearly number of police calls. Now, this is a similar development in Nashville, where they took a hotel and they converted it over to apartments. And if you'll notice in through here, the year that it was built was 1983. So this was an older product, but yet they were able to go through and put 124 units in through here, and they have a 99% occupancy rate. Matter of fact, I called today just to find out how they're doing. They have 1 unit to rent. 1. That's it. So this is not a conversion that is sort of maybe or speculative. This is absolutely something that is a viable rent and a viable product that people want to live in and be in. This is what it looks like from an aerial. Now, the current state of the buildings is not what we want it to be. And so this gives you an idea, as an architect has put together, what the buildings would look like as it relates to the exterior and how we would convert these over to create a really nice look that one would be able to see, one would be able to enjoy as it relates to living and renting in this particular area. And this is what the other building would look like. Now, here are the conditions that we have put forth. And so you can see there are 10 conditions. Most of this was worked through with members of the neighborhood through a couple of meetings that we have had. And out of that, we came to an agreement, if you will, or this is what we propose as it relates to 10 specific conditions. Now, the key here is, I think we are being sort of lumped in, and the fear is, I believe, that you've had years of homelessness, crime, and other people in through here that are of a nature that really do not contribute to a neighborhood. The fear is that if we come in and develop this as proposed, it's going to be the exact same thing. We just put pig on a lipstick, or lipstick on a pig. That's not what we've done. This is totally different. The people that would be coming in through here would go through a vetting process. They would submit applications. They would be looked through, and if they fit the criteria that they're able to have the funds necessary to be able to live here, and they pass the background check, we would absolutely look to rent to those individuals. What you've got right now are 2 hotels that if you've got cash, or you've got a credit card, you're good to go. You want to stay an hour, you want to stay a night. And so you've got all sorts of individuals that have come into this area that don't need to be there, and they're not a help. That is not what we're looking at presenting. We're looking at having people come in that would be no different than my children or your children that would want to rent things such as what we're proposing. So based on that, I would ask that the council would give this careful consideration. And again, we think that this is absolutely going to be a help and a benefit to the community. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I'd like to add some conditions. Your conditions, I know, since I was present at the meetings and listened. And while I'm talking about that, I was really impressed by the community. Community is a bunch of neat people that really care about their area. And I'm there to make sure that you get what you want. No worries about that. Thank you for your great behavior. And Mr. Price, your behavior and your team's behavior was great. These were not bad meetings. They were good meetings. People just think or take different looks at the community. I think everybody wants to commit to protect their community. I know I do. And I know everyone else up here does too. And you've had some bad stuff going on. And I understand where you're coming from. So are you willing to put as a condition that this absolutely will be market rate?
Yes, ma'am, that's what we have committed to.
Also, when you're talking about all the land, I don't want anything ever built. If this should go through, I want that kept as parkland. I want a committed buffer with whatever is needed to protect the neighborhood. I think about 80 feet is what you can do because the creek is protected, right?
There is a 60-foot creek buffer on 7717 that is in place currently now, and then we would provide an additional 20 feet basically on top of that.
All right. So I would want that. I would want at least 10% of the units to be two-bedroom.
Okay?
If you're talking about real apartments that real families are going to rent at market rate, then I think you have to do that. And also, I would like to see community space there. I noticed some, but community space for the residents, at least 500 square feet. I don't care whether it's a park, I don't care what it is. But if you're really talking about doing this the right way, then you should be willing to do that.
So community space could be things such as playgrounds, dog parks, so we
Yes,
could,
sir.
we could add some conditions.
Yes,
I
sir.
would think that would meet that. I think we could do that, yes, ma'am.
All right, and then the other thing is, there's been a tremendous problem with homelessness. How can residents be assured that the owner will make sure that they're ameliorating that problem?
So a couple things. One is currently in a hotel situation, you don't have people who are living there day after day. They're sort of nomadic in a sense. So they see somebody they don't recognize. They don't know that they're not necessarily renting or staying in a hotel that particular night or day, whatever the case may be. Here you will have individuals that will be on long-term leases, and if they start seeing individuals that they don't recognize from times in staying there, they're going to know something is amiss. Two, we have a 6-foot fence that we've discussed about putting up. Third, we talked about setting up cameras that would be both in the parking area and those around the building. Then those would be monitored 24/7 by a security company. So again, we would be able to see if there are bad actors that would be coming through the area that can then be reported and then dealt with appropriately as far as that goes.
Okay. And then the community wrote just a fabulous letter that we all received. And I'm quoting from this letter. The reason the community voted not to support the project, and I have to respect their wishes, was the lack of security on premise. And I know in some of the meetings I heard an on-site manager too. That seemed to be the sticking point. And so I'll be asking them some questions too, but what are your thoughts about that?
So I think if we were trying to rent to the same type of individuals who are staying in the hotels now, we would need probably 24-hour security, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We are not looking to have these same type individuals because, again, there's always a background check before you're going to be able to rent and stay in these particular apartments. Secondly, if we have these cameras set up the way that we have discussed, which are monitored, then I think that also provides additional security and additional security measures to make certain that people are acting and doing the things that they need to be without invading the privacy of those people that would be staying there. But thirdly, I would point out is that you really send the wrong message in my mind if you have for instance, a Walden security truck or car that's driving around 24/7, and this is a place that you're thinking about renting. It's going to put in your mind a number of questions of, what am I getting myself into? And again, we are not here to continue down the same pathway. If we did go down that pathway, if Thornhill Development did that, this would fall apart. It would fall flat on its face, and that is not what Kerry is looking at doing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And before we get to opposition, which has 9 minutes, so if you are in opposition of this and you would like to speak, you can make your way up. Opposition has a total of 9 minutes. We'll get to Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is the applicant Can you come back to the microphone?
Mr. Price?
Mr. Price, hi, thanks.
Yes, sir.
A couple of quick questions because I've been obviously aware of this case for a while. I want to make sure I understand what's going on. So usually in a rezoning case, we have a density question. We do not have a density question at this point, do we?
We do not. UGC does not have a set density requirement.
Okay, but we're doing a one-to-one conversion. Is that what we're going for?
We're looking at, yes, sir, converting the individual hotel spaces to apartment units, and which you can do in C2. So apartments are allowed in C2, but what happens is we could not do a one-for-one conversion because you're limited in the amount of density that C2 allows for apartments.
Okay. Okay. Number two, in UGC, there are strict or more strict, if you will, landscape requirements. So when I saw your drawing, that's a significant improvement outside of just the physical structure. There are streetscapes involved in UGC, and I'm curious, is that correct?
So that is for new parking lots when that's required. So what we did is recognizing that we self-placed on us a requirement to do landscaping and re-landscape and create planter areas that when these two hotels were developed did not have. So we actually, if we were to go through today and ask for a permit to convert the buildings, we wouldn't have to change the parking lots at all. But we said we don't want to do that. And so we put condition number 5. And in that, then we said we will make certain that we basically meet the tenets and the goals of the landscape ordinance, which is to make sure there's at least one tree within 60 feet of every parking space.
In the space, when we look at the aerial, Dr. Burrs alluded to this a minute ago, and then this was something that came up in committee. I was very interested in seeing the tree buffer, and I know that that has been a part of the conversation. Do you intend to encroach into any of or remove any of those trees for any future development? Understanding waters of the state and your 60-foot stream buffer, I'm good there. But is there any intent to remove that buffer?
The 80-foot buffer that we have proposed, there is not any intent to ever go into that whatsoever. Now, that being said, my understanding is in talking with one of the residents after the last meeting, is that there's a sewer main that comes from, and I'm not certain which hotel, I think it's 7717, but I won't swear to that. It goes through that buffer. There's a sewer main that then ties to the city sewer system that's in their property. There's apparently had problems in the past where it's overflowed. So I'm certain that we will have to go through there and either slip line that or replace that line to fix that. So we may take out trees in that buffer area as a result of that work. We would minimize it. And on top of that, because it is a buffer, we would have to replant that, and not just at a minimal amount. It would be replaced at a pretty substantial rate based upon the buffer requirements that the city has. But otherwise, we do not have any intention to get into that 80 feet whatsoever.
So in short, you're changing the business operation model, upgrading the building, and keeping the buffer. Did I summarize it a little too simple?
No, you're spot on, and I would add that typically a landscape buffer for this particular use would be 20 feet. We are 4 times that amount. Okay. So this is not just a trifle attempt to give a buffer. This is a meat and potatoes real buffer at 80 feet.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Coonrod?
Chair, great questions, Councilman Lefford. But Mr. Mike, I know you go hard for your people that you represent, but me specifically, I like to hear humanizing language. Can you just share with me what you mean by these type people?
That was probably a poor choice of words on my part. When I say that, what I'm referring to are bad actors. And I refer back to see, which slide? That slide. If you've got that many police calls, we've got bad actors, bad people, or people that have problems, whatever the case may be. There's a problem out here. This is not to hit any particular group. This is just simply to say there's some problems out here and they need fixing.
They need fixing.
So again, it was not my intention to hit any group per se, but just say there's bad actors.
Yeah, okay, well, I appreciate you correcting that.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it to my attention.
Yeah.
I'm 61 and old, and so I just, I make mistakes all the time.
I know, you can get those mistakes, but try come living in District 9 sometime. You think there's no behind. But yeah, I just think everybody that live in a hotel, a lot of them don't come with a bad rap sheet. They just had life had happened to them. Because you can have somebody that's squeaky clean with no issues and they'll bust somebody's head up with the quickness, right? In fact, they the quickest ones that'll do it because other people got to think about, I already went to jail, I'm already on probation, so I'm gonna kind of think about it if I want to get you or not. But, so that would be me. Now, Miss Marvin, she coming off the hook. So we have those, you know what I mean? So we can run a background check and you can have a whole serial killer that passed. So I just want you to think about that, but thank you for the
Yeah,
presentation.
no, thank you for bringing, yes, ma'am.
All right, stay on up here. Okay, is that, Councilwoman Coonrod, you good? Okay, Councilwoman Burrs?
I have one more question that hasn't seemed to be clarified. Who are you planning on renting to? Because there's been some misinformation. I agree with my constituents that Superior Creek or the place on Brainerd Road, those are places that they absolutely should want. I don't know how the information got out that this was going to be that kind of thing, but I want on the record that the conditions are, it's going to be market rate rent, it's going to be, let me ask you this. If it's 1-for-1 conversion, how do you deal with the 1 and 2 bedroom apartments? Because several rooms will make one apartment. You're still talking about that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And who do you foresee your clientele being, your renters being?
Let me bring Kerry up here and let him answer that because they've done their research and homework on that. So I think he's got a pretty good handle in terms of who we'd be looking at renting to.
Yeah, who are you renting to?
So we're renting to we're renting to our blue collar workers. We're renting to folks who work at Volkswagen. We're renting to folks who would be working at Erlanger. We're renting to the folks who are in the community who has good, solid jobs. So we have the infrastructure around Hamilton Place. We have the Gun Barrel Corridor. We have those employee-based folks who are looking for housing that's convenient locations, still convenient off of the interstate, but they're still looking for places that are still affordable. So these are going to be our clientele that we're looking to rent to.
And have you thoroughly researched them to make sure that they can pay, that they are? I heard Mike talk about that.
That is correct.
I think Darren hit it right when it's a totally different business model, right?
That is correct. That is correct. So this is something that's being done heavily on certain coasts, West Coast especially, but we're also seeing it in the Nashville markets. We're seeing it in even some markets like New York City and so on, where there's a value add of converting these properties versus ripping them down and, creating maybe a different structure or so. At the price points we're looking at, it just wouldn't be viable if we were to fully rip it down at the numbers we're looking at to rebuild. So what we're looking at is what's the best option here. We have 2 blighted motels that we're hoping to be able to create a very streamlined conversion and provide housing for solid folks in the community who's looking for something that's still reasonably priced, but still with quality finishes. As the diagram had shown there, we're looking to make sure that these are top-notch finishes. There are no cutting of corners. We're not looking to remain for much of remnant items except for the structure itself. Everything else is going to be upgraded.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
All
I'm ready to
right.
hear from the opposition.
Okay, we have one more question from Councilwoman Hill. You can
Thank
stay
you.
up.
Just a quick question. What are your rental rates going to be for a one-bedroom apartment?
So we're looking at around $1,000 a month.
$1,000 a month?
That's correct. I think
So
it's-
when I look at our area median income, a person who can afford $1,000 a month rent is probably going to be making between $31,000 and $42,000 for a single family. So those are people who work all different types of jobs in our community, to your point. A two-family household might be making between $48,000 and $36,000 a year for one of those to be able to be affordable. Just think that's good to give us some perspective on what the affordability rate is at those numbers. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, thank you so much, Lady Councilwoman, Madam Vice Chair Hill.
That's all.
All right, that's it, thank you. All right, we have, those who want to speak in opposition to this, you may come up to the microphone. You have 9 minutes. If we can get 9 minutes on the clock, please.
Hello, and thank you for your time. My name is Rick Williams. I'm the president of the Silverdale Neighborhood Association, and I'm the one that sent you the email the other day that you were talking about. First, I want to just take a brief moment and thank you for deferring this and giving us the time to meet with the developers, to meet with Mr. Price and Mr. Thornhill, to work through many ideas and concerns of ours that they did take into place. With that said, our biggest concern is security, okay? It's security for our families. It's security for our neighbors. And at the end of the day, when we look at 280 square foot motels that are turned into apartments, we don't have to look any further than East Ridge to see how it can go awry, okay? And yes, he's spending a lot of money into this project. He's doing things, but where does this go 3 years down the road? Okay, and what are we left with? Because the crime statistics that I'm looking at have nothing like the 2,400 calls that they had in East Ridge, and why the Hamilton County District Attorney had to get involved and shut that place down and redo it. So that's our concern. It's not, we don't take this lightly. These are a blight on the community. These hotels are not something that we want. We would love to see anything come in and take these over. And we're on the cusp of agreeing with them with one condition, and that's to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand like Budgetel and previous Superior Creek Lodge. And we feel the only way to do that is security. And that's the one thing, with nobody living on premise, nobody there in the evenings, we're relying on cameras. And we don't see it, so we want to encourage the city council to take this seriously. Listen to what we're trying to say. Listen to our concerns. To us, it's our life. It's our, it's our family, and that's our concerns. And it was a very hard choice to sit here and tell you no when we have the problems that we have in our community. And I think anything less than not having security there, we have to say no, and that's how we voted. I also want to thank Councilman Carol Burris for attending our neighborhood association meetings, being intricately involved in it, and standing up for us as a community. So I wanted to point that out as well. So thank you for your time. Please give it considerate thought to what we're telling you. This can go awry. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Why the chair's permission to ask a question?
Sure.
So, I want to make sure, and for the record, because you guys have done a fabulous job. In my office, when I see clients, I want to make sure that whatever decisions they make, they do it with full information. So, you understand, and I'm just doing this as reality testing, for
Yes.
the record. Okay, you understand that it's a wide open C2 now?
Yes,
Okay, and you understand anything can happen there now?
correct.
Okay, and am I clear on the only thing that you do not have that you would like is on-site security?
I'm here as a representative of my neighborhood
Sure.
association, okay? So what I'm passing on to you is a consensus of all the voting and polling that I did after our meetings, after Mr. Price and Mr. Thornhill agreed to the conditions they did, so that we knew where we stood as a neighborhood association, okay? So when I'm telling you that security is our major concern, that's the one that is the top of everybody's concerns. Are there other concerns that are not touched on? Absolutely, okay? I personally, have other concerns, and I'm going to let Mr. Jones talk about those in a minute, with the buffer zone and so forth. But, the neighborhood association and the people of our community, and we're just blue collar, older homes, and we're just trying to make a living, survive, and protect our families. And that's why we're here today in unity. So thank you, Silverdale community, for standing with me. And we're here just to protect our families. That's why we're here.
And this letter you wrote was fabulous.
Oh, thank you.
And no, it was really great. What I'm trying to parse down is I'll hear from the other two as well. It seems to me that an on-site manager or an on-site security is biggie for you. Is that correct?
For the neighborhood association, it's an absolute deal breaker.
Okay, all right. And I'm just trying to see, could there be more discussion, or I'm just trying to figure out which way to go.
I'd love to say that we could rectify this through conversations. I'm going to leave that open to Mr. Price and Mr. Thornhill.
Okay. Hey, thanks so much.
Thank
You
you.
did a good job.
Thanks again.
All right, Mr. Williams, if you could stay. Mr. Williams, Rick, is it Rick? Could you
Yeah,
stay on
Rick.
this? Okay, Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Williams, I'm curious, you mentioned the East Ridge. I think the difference here might be this is a long-term lease market rate versus the Budgetel. I think it's a different business model.
I fully understand where you're going with that.
So I think that's at number two. Can I ask you, did you at all in your meetings consider short-term vacation rentals?
Yeah, that's actually one of the stipulations, that no short-term vacation rentals.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing.
All right, is that it, Councilman Ledford?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam
All
Chair.
right, thank you. Councilwoman Hill?
With regard to not wanting short-term vacation rentals and Councilwoman Burr's point about C2 and what it allows, within C2 and the new short-term vacation rental rules, 50%, 25% of that building could turn into short-term vacation rentals, just so you know.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Councilman Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Williams, this is, so we had something similar out in my district.
Yes, sir.
The neighborhood association voted to oppose it as well. But here's one thing that, and I was trying to make sure they had the correct information. Is it that you're more comfortable with the devil that you know than the devil you don't know? Or?
I guess our biggest thing is that the only thing that we can relate it to when it comes to, sticking people in 280 square foot motel rooms for long terms is what's in our neighborhood and what's been in our backyard, which is East Ridge, okay? And like I said, when you look at those crime statistics that are in front of you, you can quadruple it if things go awry. And that's what we are concerned about. This is next door to transitional housing for homeless with the Airport Inn. These two properties are next door to the Airport Inn, okay?
Well, I guess so. What I'm asking, I've been, I tried to figure this out with them. You would rather it stay like it is than take a chance on.
Like I said, we didn't come to this decision lightly.
Converted.
We did not come to this decision lightly. If they were going in there and blowing out the interiors and putting these in as average size apartments, I've already told Mr. Thornhill I'll be down there swinging the hammer with him. I personally would be cheering him and bringing him soft drinks during the day.
So you are concerned, and they were as well. Yeah. You're concerned about the size of the apartments.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, because this is not your normal housing. An efficiency apartment, the average size of an efficiency apartment in the United States is 483 square feet. Okay, so you're not quite half that size, but you're a good size. You are you're almost half the size of an average efficiency apartment, the smallest studios you can get, okay? So you are jamming people into a very small place for a long period of time. And, it's experimental housing. If it's working in Nashville, we've got nothing in this area to model that off of, except for long-term housing in motels in East Ridge. And that's probably the worst experience that this city or this area has seen in housing, period.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. All right, that's it. Councilman Henderson?
There we go.
Any more questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. If
Thank
we
you.
can start the clock back, please.
Tell me when to go.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting to speak, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of embarrassing stuff about myself, but I want to speak more for the potential people who might want to live there. I've worked in an assisted living that's 1.5 miles from these motels since 2014. I make $12 an hour. I have excellent credit. I would be your target market probably. I have one child at home that just graduated Chattanooga Arts and Sciences the other day. But I just looked up this apartment in Nashville that they mentioned. It's 240 square feet and I just Googled it and pulled it up for $999 a month. My coworkers can't afford $1,000 a month for 240 square feet. I think with this land, I don't know what y'all should do. I just know that I work in that area. This is my community, and that this plan doesn't make sense. Even me with just one child at home, she'll be going to UTC in the fall, and hopefully she'll be at home a lot with her mama. Just with one child at home, I don't understand how anybody could live in 240 square feet. It just almost seems inhumane. So anyway, I don't know what you should do, and it's embarrassing for me to tell you what I make and to put that out there. But I just want to say, for a woman, a single mom with a child at home, this plan doesn't even make sense to me. Because one street over, I've looked at a rental property and I can get a 3-bedroom house for like $1,500 a month. So I'd rather get a roommate and do that or work a second job or something. But offering 240 square feet for $1,000 a month in a hotel, motel that looks like it's mold and run down, it just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know what y'all should do. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I know there are drug users in those motels, but I have a cousin, that has cancer. And he's on hospice, and his home is over 40 miles from here. So we have him living in one of those hotels. We pay a good amount of money every month for him to live there, but it allows us to get him to his cancer doctors, and hospice comes there. So, and my brother has a brain injury, and he lives in a group home. And when they were doing work to his group home, they stayed at that hotel. There aren't many hotels or motels that you can get for $65 a night. So I know there are a lot of drugs going on there, but there are also people with cancer who are getting hospice there. And I don't know what y'all should do, but I do want y'all to be aware that there are good people that stay there for valid reasons, and that someone like me, first of all, would never put my child in a 240 square foot thing. And that is, even if I was gonna have to do that, I would say maybe $400 a month, not $1,000 a month. Because none of my peers that I work with at the assisted living, and some of them have worked there for 15 years, these are hardworking people who everybody needs affordable housing, and we don't have much in Chattanooga, but this doesn't seem to me like a solution because it just doesn't make sense. Sorry, that's it.
All right, ma'am. Excuse me, ma'am. Could you come back for a second? Could you come back up for a second?
You're saying that.
Councilwoman Burris, just a second. Could you state your name, please, ma'am?
Sorry, it's Marilyn Stockwell.
Marilyn Stockwell. Okay,
I
thank
didn't
you.
want the whole world to know
Oh,
what
you're
I make.
fine. Marilyn Stockwell. Okay. Yeah. Councilwoman Burris.
So you're saying there is a market, but for what they're doing, but not at that size.
Well,
I think
that
that's
size, we grew up poor, like we lived in campers and trailers, and my dad couldn't read or write. But, you know, and I'm the first person to go to college, and I don't make a lot of money, but I have a degree, and I worked hard. And to think that I would have to spend $1,000 a month on 240 square feet is taking me back to that poverty of childhood. I mean, you can't, in 240 square feet, I mean, how would I play with my grandkids, you know? Like,
All I'm saying
Yeah.
is the market is there, but not for something that small.
for that small at that price, even if it was gonna be that small, charge $400 a month.
Okay.
You know, and be fair with people, but to charge them $1,000 a month for 240 square feet seems like highway robbery. And if we have this opportunity with this land to help people that are working in Chattanooga, why not, why screw them over?
Okay, thank you.
All right, if you could start the clock back, please state your name.
Terrence Jones of Presley Law Firm, and I am speaking on behalf of Rick and Sheree Williams. Mr. Williams spoke on behalf of the Neighborhood Association, and they've asked me to speak on their personal interest. I have a handout for the council, if you don't mind. Thank you. This handout is a couple of maps from the GIS system of Hamilton County, just to kind of indicate which property the Williamses own and live in. And for the council's reference, it's the property at the end of Country Lane, at the end of the cul-de-sac there. The Williamses' concerns, in addition to the concern of the Neighborhood Association, are threefold, and we're asking for three specific amendments to these proposals that have been made. First of all, as the photos that Mr. Price showed you, the neighborhood is currently shrouded by the vegetative buffer. And currently, if you refer to the last page in the packet I've provided, that vegetative buffer is at its widest point 333 feet long, and at the narrower point behind the southern property, it's somewhere in the area of 180 feet long. The proposal currently would cut that to 80 feet, so it would be a quarter as deep in the northern section and less than half as deep in the southern section. We believe that that's going to expose the back of the neighborhoods on Country Lane to the traffic on Lee Highway, to transient folks that may be walking through there, and we think it's going to generally depress the values of the property along Country Lane. And so we would ask that the council amend the proposal to require that the tree line that is currently in place, which has been in place for some time, be left undisturbed. The second point that we'd like to raise is we would like there to be some enforcement mechanism for the maintenance of this vegetative buffer. And that could take many forms. My proposal would be that we make the vegetative buffer in the deed restrictions to be in the nature of an easement that benefits the lots on Country Lane. That would allow them, if in the future, whether it's Mr. Thornhill or if it's some other future owner, if they invade into that vegetative buffer, regardless of its depth, the homeowners would have the ability to enforce the maintenance of that vegetative buffer. And the last thing is, there is a requirement that the fence be installed, and we would like it specifically stated that the fence must be both installed and maintained. We believe that over time, I'm sorry, I see my time has run out, but we believe that over time, there's a high risk that that fence, if people start to climb it, it can get run down over time and could result in a situation where there's essentially no fence at all. So with those three changes, we believe that these are workable solutions that would allow for the investment in the community and allow this project to move forward, while also maintaining the barrier between the residential zone that's on Country Lane and this new UGC zone that's along Lee Highway.
Councilwoman Burrs, followed by Councilman Henderson. You have it. All right, Councilman Henderson.
This may be a question for Jermaine or somebody in codes. What's the penalty for disturbing an undisturbed buffer?
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm asking Jermaine. You brought up the undisturbed buffer
yes.
requirement, and that'd be great and wonderful if we could enforce it.
Well, and my proposal is to allow not only the city, but also the residents along Country Lane, their own right to enforce this vegetative buffer. If we establish it in the nature of an easement benefiting those lots, then they would have an independent right from the city, I'm sorry, a right independent from the city's right to enforce the maintenance of that buffer. So if they, if they later try to clear cut it, there could potentially be a lawsuit to, replant along that area, which would require no action on the part of the city.
That happens quite frequently. Undisturbed buffers get disturbed.
Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Hill?
Thank you. So we've been doing a little bit of research up here about other hotel conversions that have happened in our area so that we can be more clear. And I just wanted to share that Passenger Flats is on the south side. It is converted hotel as part of the Choo Choo that's fully rented. Those apartments are slightly larger. They're at about 328 square feet, I think. And then the Tomorrow Building is also a hotel conversion. And on the North Shore, the Tomorrow Building is in the heart of downtown. It is fully rented and has been, and I believe it has spaces that are even smaller than these. And in District 1 on the North Shore, we've just had I think Summer House Building, which is another iteration of the Tomorrow Building that is another group of micro apartments. And at this point, none of those apartments have had any kind of significant disturbance within their neighborhood. I also, since I was handed the mic, would like to point out everybody has a different way that they live. And the things that were brought up by the neighbor about the amount of space and what you do and what you don't do, we all have different needs. Some people want huge yards and they choose to live in parts of the city where they have acre lots. Some people want no maintenance at all and they choose to live in condominiums. When you have $1,000 to spend, you have choices about where you spend that money. And I don't think that we have in Chattanooga a proven example of a micro apartment complex being a nuisance. We have a proven example of a hotel in Eastridge being a nuisance and multiple motels on Lee Highway being nuisances. So two separate things. That's all. Thank you.
All right, that it, Councilwoman, Madam Vice Chair Hill?
That's all.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Council.
And with that, we have 2 minutes, you can get 2 minutes on the clock for the applicant.
So, thank you, and thank you for the comments that we received from the residents. So, I think we're close in many ways. We continually get compared to East Ridge and what took place there. I don't think that is a fair comparison in any stretch of the imagination. Again, we're going to have background checks, security cameras. These are long-term leases. And when you look at the model of what we showed taking place in Nashville, it's 99% rented out, 99% occupancy. If it was a problem and people didn't want to live there, they wouldn't. This can work, and this is a solution to the community. That being said, we do have a nuance that I need to bring up as it relates to 7707. The request is to rezone the front portion, but we don't own the land where the buffer is being proposed to go. So I need to ask for a deferral, excuse me, on 7707. If we're going to ask for a deferral on that one, it sort of makes sense to ask a deferral for both and then bring these back before the council. We'll be happy to see if we can bridge the gap any closer with the community. Some of the things that were mentioned, I think, can be done. Some of the things that have been mentioned, I don't think that there's a way to get to the degree of what they've been asked for the developer to do. But with that being said, I would ask if we could get a 30-day deferral, which I believe would put us on the July 11th meeting. And then hopefully at that point, we can bring this back to the commission for a vote at that point. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Okay, I see no lights. Thank you, Mr. Price.
Thank you.
All right, Councilwoman Burrs, there's a motion on the floor.
Yes, I think given all the interest and the positive things that could happen including making the apartments larger or whatever, I move that we give them the 30-day deferral.
Okay, all right, that is for item C, a 30-day deferral. It's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Item D has already been read by Councilwoman Burrs.
I move that we give them also a 30-day referral.
All right. Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, if you can read item E under planning.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 5619 Clark Road from R3 residential zone, temporary zone with conditions to R3 residential zone, permanent zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, Councilwoman Burrs? I'm sorry, is the applicant present? Is there any opposition? All right, Councilwoman Burrs. Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item F.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance, so as to lift and amend conditions from ordinance number 12703, Section 4, or previous case number 2013-0004 for an unaddressed property in the 5200 block of Hunter Road.
All right, is the applicant present? All right, Mr. Price, is there any opposition present? All right.
I'd like to ask a question before we start. Karen?
All right, Council.
We've had this case presented to us, and I've gotten calls from all kinds of people within the county, without the county, the city, from all over, actually. And I think there's some misinformation out there. So before we get started, this is not a rezoning, yes or no?
It is not a rezoning.
All right. And as far as the apartments that are asked to be built there, they can do that right now.
The apartments are allowed to be built under the
Just
current
yes
zoning.
or no?
Yes.
And then we'll get into the weeds. As I understand this, this is a getting rid of conditions that are old and outdated for some project way back and replacing them with safety conditions.
That's correct. The conditions are referencing a different project from several years ago. And there's kind of two batches, you're correct. There are a batch of kind of safety conditions and then a few use
And the
conditions.
safety conditions have to do with the road, which is a dangerous road, and they have to do with a stoplight, with a warning light for the stoplight, and with deceleration lanes, this sort of stuff, which would make, so actually what they're asking for is conditions that make the place safer. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes, but additional conditions are recommended to replace those to add to address the safety.
Right, so they're getting rid of conditions that don't make the places safe and replacing them with conditions that do make it safe.
Based on working with CDOT, yes, the recommended
All right,
condition.
that's all I want to know. Okay. Who's up?
Right, applicant's present. All right, the applicant is present, and he has 7 minutes. But before we continue on, I did want to recognize Hamilton County Commissioner Steve Highlander. So thank you so much for being here.
All right, thank you. Again, Mike Price, and if I might, I'm going to go old-fashioned for a second and pass out a handout of, that shows you, the front shows you what was passed in 2011 and where these conditions, the genesis began. And then behind that shows what is proposed and why we need to amend those conditions. So there's basically about 10 conditions. And out of those 10 conditions, we've gone through and about 6 are eliminated and some are somewhat shifted around. But the basic basic reason behind this is in 2011, what was proposed to go here was a 100,000 square foot retail box store, 6 out parcels, which could have been anything from dentists to restaurants to office buildings and other various uses, and a hotel. Now, there will be some discussion about safety, and we believe safety is a concern that needs to be addressed, and certainly when we look at doing these plans, we want to be safe with regards to what we plan and engineer and get approved. And at the end of the day, if you look at the amount of traffic that would have been generated by this development as it was originally approved, it would be 10 times the amount of traffic that is being generated by the apartment development. It's 10 times. So we're going a tenth of what had been approved back in 2011 by going with an apartment. The plan has gone through pretty much the review process at the Land Development Office. We're getting close to the end as it relates to the comments to be addressed. And so as we have gone through and met with staff and gone through the review process, I think we've addressed the issues here as it relates to providing safety with putting a traffic signal at the intersection of Hilltop Drive and Hunter Road. Coming out of Planning Commission, we now have added to put in a de-acceleration lane on the westernmost entrance. And so this is a condition where we're going from 3 driveways from the old plan down to 2, and that we are conditioning ourselves to create a safe condition with the way that it would be developed. And so with that, we would ask for approval. If there's any questions, happy to answer them.
All right, thank you so much for that. Okay, and opposition present, you have 9 minutes total. All right.
Thank you, City Council. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I very much appreciate my cohort, Councilwoman Burtz, who represents the city. We represent a lot of the same area, and we cross over there. A problem that I have seen here is the tremendous traffic problem that's there. And I appreciate Mike Price, and he does a great job with map engineering. But we already I have a grandchild that goes to school at Hunter and one at Ooltewah High School. And we have both city and county residents who have called me, as they have you, I'm sure, Councilwoman Burtz, and are very concerned about the traffic pileup. Now, the traffic study was done in July, I think the original traffic study, and there are quite a few more houses here now than there were then. But one thing that I would suggest, in lieu of, they have made some good safety measures, but I think if they had a roundabout at Hilltop as opposed to a light, I think it would really move the traffic a whole lot better. Right now, I go 2 miles to Hunter Road, down Hunter Road to take my grandson, and normally at school time it takes me 45 minutes to an hour. Some people coming the other direction to get to the interstate take an hour and 15 minutes. There is a traffic quagmire that is tremendous already. And I do realize that it's zoned for that. I'm not trying to dispute that, but I would say that the traffic could be alleviated. I think Councilman Ledford might even address, I think he has family on that road. And hopefully I'm not putting you on the spot, sir, but if you could discuss some of the traffic that's already there, it's overwhelming already. And I would hope that we could do a roundabout as opposed to maybe a light. Thank you very much. I'm sure there are others. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kim Helton. I live on 8618 Snow Hill Road. I have a lot to cover, so I'm going to try to hurry. We are asking you to deny or delay the vote. We asked several times before and after the Planning Commission for a community meeting, but no meeting was held. In 2010, Councilman Murphy said about Hunter Road, he asked who allowed Hunter Road to continue as this abomination. The city's portion of Hunter Road includes an S-curve with no shoulders and is one of the most dangerous and congested areas with many wrecks and flooding issues. Please don't allow this abomination to get worse. The flooding occurs several times. The road has to be closed. The traffic diverted from Hilltop around through the neighborhoods back to Ooltewah Harrison Road. You know, this can be a concern if some people are stopped at a red light and they don't have anywhere to go and flooding comes across the road. So that's definitely an issue. There's only one lane in each direction. This traffic light will not add any more lanes. It'll only add turn lanes for the apartments complex. So the traffic light will make congestion worse. In the 2021 traffic study, it was done in July, did not include school traffic, school buses, any of that. A COVID adjustment was made, but no adjustment for future or current school traffic. So the backup distances predicted, the queue lengths, et cetera, would not be accurate because of that. And so the flooding concern is something that we want addressed, and we also think that it should be a traffic circle. The manual on uniform traffic control devices in the city code clearly states that the study should represent existing conditions in an average day. The 2021 traffic study is 2 years old and does not include school traffic. This study does not seem to meet those requirements, so we're asking if you look into that. The MUTCD says adequate road capacity should be provided, 2 lanes in each direction preferred, and that traffic flow should not be seriously impeded. So we're asking you to consider a traffic circle for all those reasons as well. There's other flooding concerns for this site plan. The stormwater pond is located in the floodplain, and the Wolf Teever plan says that the floodplain should not be disturbed in that area. And we had a petition. It was like 10 days that we had it out there, and so we had 420-something signatures, but we went through there and took out ones that weren't from Hamilton County, so we had 375 signatures in just 10 days. And so some of the conditions that we were proposing were a traffic circle, greater setbacks of the apartments and entrance for future possible road widening, require so that the departments keep the dedication of the land to the city for future road widening, because the city owns property at Ottawa Harrison Road and Hunter Road, right across from this development. So there could also be a traffic circle put in there. Traffic sometimes backs up tremendously because people need to turn onto the left onto Ottawa Harrison Road, and they can't, and there's no left turn lane for them to get over, so traffic backs up. So, with adding a traffic light here, it's just going to back the traffic up both ways. You don't adding any lanes, there's no shoulders on the roads. It's just going to be just as dangerous and just as congested as it already is now. We did have a question about the zoning. Because the C2 zoning says that the intent of it is for development of businesses, offices, and service facilities to serve the demand of goods and services generated by both area residents and transients traveling to or from other neighborhoods or places of employment. It also says any use or structure that is not otherwise found to be in keeping with the stated intent of these zoning regulations is prohibited within the C2. So that's a question that we have about the C2, because it's telling you 2 different things right there. So we're trying to, when we're looking at it, we're saying, well, it says dwellings, but then it says you're only supposed to have things that are, the intent of the C2 zone, which apartments are not. That's a private development, not services for the community. So we do have a few questions about that as well. I'll let the next.
I have a question.
It's good to finally attach a face. So you live in the county, right?
I do.
Okay. And so you said you asked for a community meeting, but one wasn't held.
No.
And who do you think you was going to call a community meeting?
Well, I thought that the city council was supposed to, call a council meeting. Because we've had.
I think I told you that.
Yeah.
I suggested that you talk to your county representative, because you guys are the neatest people in the world, and you've got really good concerns. But I don't have any power to represent you or call your meeting. And the issue is in the city, right?
Right.
Now, the petition that you have,
Yeah, I'm going to give the copy for that.
all right, the petition that you have, is that, there are a bunch of city residents? Because if
There are
they-
some, yes, that signed the petition.
How many are there?
I don't know exactly. I spoke with one, and I spoke with some business owners too. One was out of town this week.
Sure.
And they were concerned because they mentioned the flooding on the road. They were very concerned about that. And
I've talked with one woman from the city who lived the other side of the freeway. And of course, the business owners, that's a whole different issue. I'm saying that there may be good solutions to that, but I don't want my colleagues misled, okay?
Well, we did ask Mr. Price as well, and he said he didn't see a need to talk to the community. Like I said, we know of, one of the city residents and business owners who would have liked to have a community meeting as well. And so they did not get to go to a community meeting and be heard
Okay.
either. So.
Were they
there's-
prohibited from calling a community meeting?
I don't know that they would know how to call a
Okay,
community meeting.
just so there's a clear picture.
Yeah,
No-
I mean,
no
I don't really
problem
know.
at all.
Yeah, I don't really know that,
May I answer?
they would know how. Okay.
Okay.
May I make a statement?
Sure.
Concerning what you said, I have had several people, city and county, predominantly county.
Sure.
But I have some city residents also call, business owners, and I would wonder if it's ever been done before, if there's a joint meeting between the city council person and the county commissioner. I would be willing to do that.
Well, that's, I get that. So I would have to know who we're talking about in the city. This is a strange situation, and I get it.
It's
Where the
awkward.
city annexed property that was already zoned. I get all that. So the issue is safety measures for what is going in there. And I just wanted my colleagues to have a clear picture of
And
what was
that's my
going on.
predominant concern is safety.
No problem.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
So the only thing that I would add is that rear end crashes are the predominant form of crashes in that vicinity. And it has been shown through several studies that rear end crashes increase, not decrease with the traffic light.
Sure.
So, that's, you're talking about increasing the same type of car crash that normally occurs there. And there have been fatalities there for some wrecks. So, it's a real concern as far as that is too. Crashes and things like that. But we have a packet we put together and we have the petition, a couple of copies of the petition as well that we wanted to give you for all our questions and concerns. And we would have loved to have had a community meeting to discuss things. And of course, we think that a traffic circle would not impede the flow as the manual in the city code says. And at least traffic would keep moving instead of just stopped and just backing up. We think, traffic now backs up to the Flagstone subdivision, which is a long way from that area. So it's going to back up far worse than that now. The traffic congestion in Ooltewah is bad. And this will only add to it. There's 5 bottlenecks in the Lee Highway between Hunter Road and past the interstate. So we're talking about adding even more bottlenecks when you add another traffic light. So those are big concerns for traffic congestion and safety. Thank you.
Hello, I am a city resident, Colleen Kirk, 634 Gurley Street. Councilwoman Hill, thank you very much. And I am here representing the city residents who also signed the petition. They asked me to come speak. It is a concern for us with traffic congestion. There's a reason why things go through zoning and then come here. Zoning, bless their hearts, they do a wonderful job. They look at the bare minimum specs, does it match zoning? What we look for the council to do is really look at the broader impact on the community. What's really going to happen? Does it really fit and is it compatible? And I think what we're saying here is, yes, we know that this can be compatible. We know it has the density to have an apartment, but we're looking to see how can we ensure the safety and decrease the traffic congestion. And that's why we continuously say the traffic circle to keep it moving. I think one of the things that hasn't been shared, which is one of my big concerns having lived through it, is when you have traffic congestion, what you end up doing is putting lives and property at risk. If the emergency vehicles can't get to that person, if the emergency vehicles can't get to that home, lives and property are lost. And that's why this is such a big issue. And that's why we're coming to you and saying, we're not saying no to development. We're asking to ensure that we can have some things in place that keep the traffic flowing, keep us safe, and lower the impact on the neighborhood and community in that area. And I think it is interesting that we have both county and city residents coming to both councils both the county commissioners and the city council voicing these concerns. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Ma'am,
And I also am friends with
where
Mr.
do you
Price.
live? Where do you live in the city?
I'm at 634 Gurley Street. We're in Hill City.
In where?
Hill City,
Hill
like North
City.
Shore, North Shore. Where I live has 3 names: Hill City, North Shore, North Chattanooga, depending what year you moved here. So,
All right.
great.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Price, you have 2 minutes.
So, thank you. Again, this is a situation where we have, I think, met the threshold as it relates to dealing with the safety and the traffic concerns by installing a traffic signal there at the intersection of Hilltop and Hunter Road. Now, there's been a lot of banning back and forth about installing a roundabout. That would be great. The problem is due to the grades, due that you have waters of the state, due to the fact that you've got an interstate right-of-way, you do not have the room to put in a roundabout. If we could, and money was no object, that's what we would do, and if we didn't have any environmental issues, then we could do such as that. But you just don't have the ability to construct a roundabout at that intersection without trampling over the other regulations that are in place as it relates to the environment. So, and FHWA and their right-of-way on the interstate. So that's why we propose to do the traffic signal, and we are actually adding some left turn bays at that signal, so this is just not for the benefit of the residents that are proposed to live here and for those that would go up to the restaurant or hotel. So this area does back up. Will this add to somewhat of that congestion? Yes, it will. It's just unfortunate, but it is a fact of life. But as we add more density in people, that adds to traffic. But again, we think that this is a far better plan and that these conditions that were placed on this property some 12 years ago, they're no longer appropriate because that's no longer a plan that can be developed. So we have come up with a plan that we think is appropriate and does start meeting the housing needs that are in our area that need to be addressed. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Is Ben here? Is our city person here? Where is he? Oh, good.
And Councilwoman Burrs, if you hit your lights, lights.
Okay, Ben, so there's been a lot of talk here about lack of safety. You've been out, you've seen the area. This is a city responsibility. Whether people are mostly from the county or from the city or from the area, safety is the concern. So tell me about safety.
Okay.
Well, it either is or it isn't. It's very simple. It
Sure,
either
well, I
is
mean-
or it isn't.
What I always tell everybody is every single street in the city of Chattanooga is safe. It's all how you use it. Problems we have out in this area, just like many other spots in the city, people drive inappropriately. There's over nearly 10,000 cars a day that drive down Hunter Road. And there's not a wreck every day, so that's 10,000 cars is safe to make it through the area. So anything can be driven safely. I think what you're really getting at here is how will this development impact the current conditions? And as Mr. Price said, he's 100% right. You build in more units, we're going to have more congestion. It's just a matter of, it's just a fact. As far as, there's not much you can do to mitigate the congestion itself. You can mitigate how much impact it has on the safety aspect of it and being able to stop the Hunter Road traffic for people to be able to come in and out of the new development. And the Hilltop, which has more development going up on it, will benefit traffic. I very much enjoyed the lady referencing METCD. That was awesome. I spent a lot of time explaining to folks why signals aren't warranted in certain areas. She hit a lot of very good points. But in this situation, a roundabout would be perfect. But there's not even enough room to put in a sidewalk along this road. So I do agree that would be a very tough thing to design. What I worked with the developer in this case was to put the sidewalk through the development. So when they usually run this, they're required to put sidewalk around the development. This one will actually go up, go through it. And so the residents will actually be able to walk through the development to get from the restaurants down at one end into the neighborhoods. think I might have answered some of the safety questions. I can't remember now.
Okay. So, Darren, I have to ask you, because you've been interested in this as well, and several people asked, so do you want to make any comments?
All right, and then Councilman Smith, I'll come back to you. Okay, Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I travel this road probably 3 times a week. And the biggest issue that I see, obviously, like we see across the city, to Ben's comment, is speed. I've had people on my 6, trying to push me faster, and I'm like, nope, not doing it. I know how to drive. I know how to drive responsibly, and things happen, so why push it? I see people ripping through there like crazy, motorcycles, Jeeps, everything, and I can't figure out why. That's why at Planning Commission, I was very passionate about adding in a decel lane, and I appreciate Mr. Price adding that in on the second entrance. I think that's a monumental opportunity to avoid rear-end crashes. I also asked last week in Planning and Zoning Committee for Mr. Taylor to work with Mr. Price in installing another light as a warning, especially as you're coming down that hill, Udawal Harrison. That is a sharp turn, and I know that when you're coming down Hunter Road for quite a bit of time, you like to go faster, and I understand that. But I think that warning light is a visual reference and an aid to grab attention at that intersection, and I think it's warranted. And I didn't get any pushback from the developers or Ben. So Ben, I appreciate you not arguing with me on that one. I think anything that we can do in that intersection to make it safe. I think the decel lanes on both entrances and that warning light is very responsible, if that's a word, Madam Chair and Dr. Burrs. I think that's. I did look into the roundabout. I heard that suggestion, and I knew that we had some issues there with right of way. And so I think that CDOT has done their job, and I would encourage people to just take a little bit of time coming through there. So.
All right, Councilman Ledford, is that it, sir?
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, all right, Councilman Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hey, Ben, putting you back on the spot. You said a roundabout would be perfect, but it would be difficult. Does difficult mean impossible, too costly, would cost room for a sidewalk? I mean, if I'm thinking safety and a roundabout would be safer, then I'm less inclined to choose a sidewalk over a safer driving route. So I was just curious if you had an answer to what do you mean by difficult, and is it something that should have more consideration, or is the light, I could be wrong, but you are probably the only traffic engineer here, so your opinion matters. What are your thoughts truly on saying a roundabout would be perfect, but in this case?
Sure. So I did not review the right-of-way area for a roundabout, which is brought up today, actually, for my review. But we reviewed if we could put a sidewalk on the street, and we did not even have enough width for the 5-foot sidewalk along the street because there is a blue line stream, waters of the state, which we have great difficulty to do anything with. And so when I found that was there, we agreed to reroute the sidewalk through the property. I'm not sure what is to the south of the street. I just know on the north side of Hunter is that waters of the state, so there's really no room to go that direction. I'm really not familiar with what's to the south. I know you'll get into TDOT's right of way quickly, and they're not going to want anything getting too close to the interstate. But honestly, I don't know exactly how much room there is.
Fair enough. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, Councilwoman Burrs?
I need, Ben, sorry. So is this something that we defer for you to look at? Or, I mean, I need a more complete answer.
I understand. Yes, ma'am. Like I said, the roundabout idea showed up in my inbox today. I I have really no idea what kind of room there is there, but I do know a roundabout is much more expensive than a traffic signal, and that may be it is something that moves traffic more efficiently, no question about that. She's 100% right, you have less rear-end collisions with a roundabout, a lot of things like that. I'd be happy to review it if that's the decision from the council, but I really don't.
Is that something the city would put in, right?
ma'am.
That's something the developer would put
Correct.
in.
Now, any such, what we're talking about right now is a development requirements that the city can put on a development. Generally, we try to make those as painless as possible, otherwise y'all hear about them quickly. And in this case, had I made a recommendation for a roundabout at that intersection, the developer may have gone to the council and said that was too onerous for
And they
this
may
size
still do
development.
that. I'm just asking.
Yeah, and I wouldn't really know without having to review and see what kind of right-of-way is there. But I do know, without a doubt, it's much more expensive. We're talking 10 times as expensive to build a roundabout versus a signalized intersection.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Henderson, followed by Councilwoman Hill.
Well, I just want to make a brief comment about the roundabout. And when you're talking about a tight space, you know, when we use the word mini roundabout, I can promise you, you're going to have more headaches with a mini roundabout and it not being the appropriate size with people trying to navigate it. Look, I'm a fan of roundabouts when they're built to the appropriate size, but I have experience in my district with one that's too small, and promise me you don't want that. Or I promise you.
Councilwoman Hill.
Ben, when last you quoted a traffic signal for an area of my district where people wanted one where it was not warranted, I was told that a traffic signal 2 years ago was about $500,000 to put in. So if $500,000 is the cost of a traffic signal-ish, and a roundabout is 10 times that, we're talking about $5 million? And a sidewalk is $34,000 a linear foot?
Yes. Development is very expensive. We talked about how much it costs to rent a 200 square foot house, rent place a while ago. This is, things have gotten very expensive. The details of that one particular signal you're talking about, I can't remember exactly what it was, but that amount is higher than just a regular signal.
Okay.
You don't expect the signal at Hilltop to be in the $500,000 range.
Okay.
Again, I haven't priced these things out. These are just, y'all are hitting me with these questions and I'm trying to give as close answers as I can. But the last time we designed a roundabout, it was 10 times the cost of a signal we put in. And this was around Jenkins, somewhere on Jenkins Road about 10 years ago. So I'm just giving some round numbers.
Okay, just as I think about different conditions, as we talk through things like this at council, you know, one case we talked about 24/7 security. We don't want high rents. Like, if you add $5 million to the cost of a development, somebody's going to pay for that, right? And then we think about, do we want taxes? Do we not want taxes, but we need better infrastructure? You know, it all goes together. It's just an interesting conundrum that's in front of us every week.
All right. Thank you.
Tonight's my night.
And
I see. All right, Councilwoman Burrs. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Ledford.
Can I, Madam Chair, if you don't mind, Ben, I'm going to call you back.
We're all so tired.
Ben, it's so good to see you tonight. Is there a way we could further conversation along with the signal light and the warning signal light to look at increased signage and to increase visibility and awareness of what's coming ahead? I'm all for anything that will increase awareness and get people to kind of slow the roll through there, so to speak.
Yeah, I have no doubt that we can build the signal. It can be, it will have an actuated flasher coming in the direction. Kimberly Horn, the engineer doing the traffic impact study, already sent some drawings in for what they would put in, and it's exactly what we would request. Actuated signal far enough back that tells you when the light's going to be red coming around the corner.
Okay, because the Chattanooga city limit sign is right past Oodwall Harrison. Literally, as you coming down the hill, it's right there, and then Oodwall Harrison comes in. Signage, I want to throw that out there as a conversation. piece as well. I'll take anything I can get.
Sure.
All right, Councilman Ledford, good. All right, Councilwoman Burrs.
Does the applicant have a few minutes?
Yes, you got 2 minutes. Add 2 minutes on the clock, please.
Yeah. Are you willing to defer for 1 week until we get the list of the signed?
Well, what I might respectfully state here, if you will, is that these are permitting issues. These are not zoning issues. So I would ask that we vote on the zoning tonight. We can continue to have dialogue with staff and Will. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting with one of the representatives from CDOT tomorrow at the site to go over a couple of questions that we have as it relates up at that westernmost entrance. Make sure we get it right. But these are permitting issues, which really are not the request, I guess, before the body. We're issues that we're going to address, and they're items that certainly need concern, and I think the discussion has been appropriate. But if I might ask, if we could just vote on the request, we'll continue to work on these. You have my word on it, and obviously you've used Ben as a yo-yo up and down to indicate his willingness to work with us, and so we will do that. We will come up with the appropriate plan, whatever that might look like.
So here's what I'd like to do. I understand on the record that the light is happening, that the warning light is happening, that the deceleration lanes are happening. And are you willing to put on the record that the appropriate signage will happen?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and proper second. Are there any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, if you can read item G.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone an unaddressed tract of land located in the 6700 block of East Brainerd Road from R1 residential zone to R4 special zone, subject to certain conditions.
All right, is the applicant present? Is there any opposition present? Is there any opposition
It's my day,
present?
isn't it?
All right, Councilwoman Burrs.
Very quickly, Mr. Price, you've sent the,
I'm just glad to have a case with no opposition.
I'm earning all the big bucks. All right, so I'm going to tie this to the site plan and to what you said you were going to build there,
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So can we, I don't know whether the city attorney has this.
He probably doesn't, but either we
Hand
can
it
email it to him.
That will be attached to it, and I move approval.
Second.
Been motion and properly second. Any comments or questions?
For the record, which one are we approving? Because there was one that was recommended for denial by the planning commission and staff. I just want to make sure that you're reading item G that is recommended for approval by the planning.
Yeah,
Yes, subject to
yes.
certain conditions.
Yes. And these are the conditions.
Yes.
You got them right there. That's what
Right.
it's going to look like, and this is what's going to happen there.
Okay.
All right.
We will certainly work with whatever the city attorney's office. We'll figure up some appropriate, I'm sure he'll figure up appropriate language and then we'll work through that. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, we good, Phil?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. It's been motion and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, if you can read item H.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone properties located at 907 Arlington Avenue and 911, 915, 919 Taylor Street from R1 residential zone to R3 residential zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is the applicant present? All right, so applicant, any opposition present? Councilwoman Knoll, you hit your light?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been motion and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item I.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 1130 East 14th Street from R3 residential zone to UDC urban general commercial zone, subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is the applicant present? All right, applicant, any opposition present? Okay, Councilwoman Knoll?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So, I would like to make, if the applicant is in agreement, to make an amendment to this so that it would be 2.5 stories or 35 feet. So that's in the form of a motion. Move to approve.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second, and you would like to add an amendment?
Yes,
All right,
that it will be 2.5 stories or 35 feet.
okay, the amendment has been moved and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Amendment passes. We will now vote on the motion as amended.
Yes, so I move to approve as amended.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed?
And for the record, at least at this point in time, the two conditions will be residential uses only, and the maximum building height will be 2.5 stories or 35 feet.
That is correct.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Motion passes. All right, Madam Clerk, read item J.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 1108 Macaulay Avenue and an unaddressed tract of land located in the 1100 block of Duncan Avenue from M2 Light Industrial Zone and R3 Residential Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone and R4 Special Zone subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is the applicant present? Is there any opposition present? Councilwoman O?
Move to approve.
Motion and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item K.
In ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 38 zoning ordinance so as to rezone property located at 2519 Bailey Avenue from R2 Residential Zone to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone subject to certain conditions.
Okay, is the applicant present? All right. Is there any opposition present? Councilwoman Coonrod. Okay, second. Okay, the motion is, it's been moved and properly second.
I'd like to leave the height conditions to allow a maximum of 4 stories.
Okay, maximum of 4 stories. Okay, is that in the form of a motion? Okay. The amendment has been moved and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Amendment carries. Is there a motion as amended?
Second.
Okay, as amended, it's been moved and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes as amended. Madam Clerk, we finally made it to resolutions. All right, Madam Clerk, Council Office, item A.
A resolution confirming the appointment of Whitney Sickles to the Animal Control Board for District 1 with term beginning on June 14, 2023 and ending on June 13, 2026.
Councilman Henderson?
Move approval.
Properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Under Economic Development, if there's no opposition from council, I would like to take items B, C, and D as a group. All right? Yes, sir. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Item B, a resolution authorizing the mayor, his designee, to enter into a second amendment to lease with Hendricks Commercial Properties LLC in substantially the form attached for office space in Suite 300 of the Edney Building, 1100 Market Street, for an additional term of 2 years with the option to renew for one additional term of 1 year for the occupancy of approximately 7,790 square feet of space by the Department of Technology Services. Item C, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for sale and purchase with Warren Partners in substantially the form attached for property located on East 38th Street, further identified as tax map number 167DE041, in the amount of $275,000, and to execute all documents related to the transaction with closing fees for an amount not to exceed $5,000 for a total amount not to exceed $280,000. Item D, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute quitclaim deeds conveying 14 certain or certain combinations of parcels in substantially the form attached to the approved highest bidders on properties of the city of Chattanooga and Hamilton County as acquired through previous delinquent tax sales.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item E.
A resolution adopting a 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2024 through 2028, subject to future revision, a copy of which is attached hereto and made a part hereof by reference.
Okay, Councilwoman Byrd.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second, and we do need a roll call vote for this item.
Councilman Henderson? Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Ledford? Yes. Councilman Hester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Byrd?
Yes.
Councilwoman Knoll?
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod? Vice Chair Hill?
Yes.
Chair Dockley?
Yes.
9 yeses.
All right. Motion passes. Madam Clerk, item F.
A resolution indicating intent of the city of Chattanooga, Tennessee to issue its bonds or other obligation of indebtedness related to public works projects of the city with the proceeds of bonds and or other debt obligations to be issued by the city of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Councilwoman Byrd.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. No objection from council. I would like to take items G and H as a group. Oh, okay, Madam Clerk. Okay. Madam Clerk, go ahead.
Item G, a resolution confirming Mayor Kelly's appointment of Declan Mangan Lamb to the Community Advisory Committee, Region 3, North Chattanooga, and to acknowledge as confirmed as a special youth representative with a term beginning on June 14, 2023, and ending on June 13, 2024. Item H, a resolution approving a cost savings incentive program policy to develop increased efficiency of government operations through the stimulation of innovative thinking among city employees, leading to areas for improvement, cost savings, and better service to the residents of the city of Chattanooga.
Okay, Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I move to approve this.
All right. Okay.
And if I may just make a quick comment, Declan Mangan Lamb is the first Community Advisory Committee member who is a youth representative in District 2 and District 1 for the North Chattanooga Advisory Committee. And he had to leave with his moms and his brother, but otherwise we would have been all saying, yay, Declan. But they're watching, so thank you, Declan.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for serving, Declan. Any other comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, council, with no objection, I would like to take items I through M as a group. All right, Madam Clerk.
Item I, a resolution authorizing approval of change order number 2 for Alta Planning and Design relative to contract number T14005-101, Protected Bike Lane and Neighborhood Greenway Design for an increased amount of $10,000 for a revised contract amount not to exceed $401,660. Item J, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into an agreement with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. to perform geotechnical exploration and preliminary engineering services for the Hammer Road Slope Stabilization T22007-101 project for an amount not to exceed $162,147.45. Item K, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute the consent to assignment of all purchase orders for vendor number 871375 Vaughn and Melton Consulting Group LLC to Johnson, Mirmoran, and Thompson, Inc. relative to the following purchase orders. One on-call blanket contracts for professional surveying services, contract number E22002-901, purchase agreement number 100260, purchase order number 5462752. Item L, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew the continuing on-call professional surveying services blanket contract number E22002-901 with the following 8 consulting firms: ASA Engineering and Consulting, Inc., Boris Design Solutions, Inc., Consort Engineers, LLC, Croy Engineering, LLC, Earthworks, LLC, Reagan Smith Associates, Inc., the RLS Group LLC and Johnson, Muir, Moran, and Thompson, Inc., formerly Vaughn and Melton Consulting Engineers, Inc., based upon their qualifications within the identified services category for year 2 of a 4-year term for an annual amount of $1 million for use by all departments. And item M, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew the on-call blanket contract E19011-201 for year 3 of 4 for the roof inspections, repairs, and maintenance with the following 2 vendors: Porter Roofing Contractors, Inc. of Morrison, Tennessee, and Tri-State Roofing Contractors, LLC of Chattanooga, Tennessee, for the annual amount of $500,000 total for use by all departments.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Planning item N.
A resolution approving a new special exceptions permit for an existing liquor store located at 7022 Shaliford Road.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
I don't have.
Opposed?
We've been over here
All right,
too long. I'm
motion
sorry.
passes. Motion passes.
I did not get to
We
go
have
back.
purchases. Yes, ma'am. Lord. Whenever you're ready.
Good evening, sorry. All right, we have one purchase recommended for approval, and it is from the Fleet Management Division of Public Works. This is a new blanket contract for vehicle oils, lubricants, and fluids from Hunter Oil Company, Inc. This will be a 4-year agreement not to exceed $150,000 per year. Romeo Enterprises LLC was the low bidder, but did not bid all lines and was not considered for award.
Okay, Councilwoman Burrs.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes.
We also have one RFP format recommended for approval this evening from the Department of Economic Development. They would like to issue an RFP to retain the services of a licensed real estate agent to represent the city in selected transactions involving the acquisition and disposition of real property on behalf of the city.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and properly second. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Okay, all opposed? Motion passes. Now we are here for committee reports. Councilman Henderson? All right, Councilman Smith?
No report, Madam Chair.
Councilman Ledford?
No report.
Councilman Hester?
No report.
Councilwoman Coonrod?
Man, we had a listen.
That part.
We're tired, y'all.
Jermaine, I hope you still got some pieces back there in the back, because boy, they was on you today, but you handled it. So we talked about the West Side Evolves plan, which was, man, listen, just go back and look at the footage. We need a replay on that one. Yeah, we'll be having a follow-up work session during, next week to talk further about it and to get other questions and everything to be, addressed on there. And then Chairwoman, just one thing, I want to just say something. So I've been getting a lot of emails and my constituents just really don't understand, why I've been missing community meetings or why I've not been showing up at, certain events that's been happening in the community. And right now, my dad is ill, like severely ill. And all my disposable time that I've had previously to, try to show up at everything as much as possible that I can, my disposable time is now with my dad. And that time is mostly filled with traveling the highway back and forth to the VA hospice in Murfreesboro. And, we just recently decided to bring my dad home. And so my siblings and I are working schedules to where, we're spending time and taking care of our dad. So it's not that I'm neglecting my duties as a council person. It's not that, I'm not trying not to answer your emails right then like I normally would be able to respond. So emailing the clerk or emailing the mayor, that's not gonna make me respond no faster. Two, right now my time with my dad is very important. It's important to me. And, for so many times when I lost my daughter, when I lost my grandmother, when I lost my mom, when I lost important people in my life, I kept going, serving the community because I knew they were watching and they were expecting for me to fail. So showing up was, I can't allow myself to fail. I didn't have time to grieve. But now I realize during the process of my dad and his illness that I've got to make sure that Demetrius is well. I can't serve my community if I'm not well. And so I had to take a couple of Tuesdays off to get myself together because watching a parent, that watching it is hard for anybody, right? So I just wanted to take the time to say, you know, I would appreciate if when you email me, just take the time to ask how I'm doing, you know, and then go into your spiel. But to email me and to go off the hook, that it's not going, I'm not going to respond to it. You know, I think I've shown consistently that I want to serve my community, even during the times where I should have been rocking in my rocking chair or cuddled up in my bed with a pillow, right? I've shown up. Right now, I need the community to show up for me because I'm going through a hard phase right now with my dad. And so I would appreciate you all if you all understand. And so whenever I can show up, I'll be there. But when I can't, just understand that there's other obligations that got my 100% undivided attention that's needing me there right now. So, and I appreciate my colleagues, you know, just being there for me and truly understand because they've been, when I've had to miss meetings, council meetings and things like that, you know, they've given me all the support in the world. So I really appreciate that and from the administration. So thank you.
All right, thank you so much for sharing, Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilwoman O.
No report.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Yes, ma'am, we did the first reading of the budget tonight and
Of operating budget and of the capital budget.
All right, Councilwoman Hill.
No report.
Okay, we do have under other business, Phil.
Yes, ma'am. We had an item for certificate of compliance for Amguru Krupa LLC, DBA Ronnie's Wine and Spirits. This is a transfer of the license from one license holder to the other for 7022 Shallowford Road, Chattanooga. The only problem I have this evening is we've been going since 3 o'clock and I do not have a copy of the signatures for you guys to be able to sign. I will go there around and get those and have them delivered to them as soon as I can get that done, but did not have that this evening because we've been in business. The second item is a certificate of good moral character as well, and this is a little bit different than you're used to seeing on here because it's the first one we've had in a while for a private club, and this is for a VFW operation, and it just needs 3 signatures, and I will do the same with both items.
All right, thank you so much, and Mr. Thomas is here, I believe. Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you for your service to our country as well.
And your good moral character.
And your good moral character.
great marks. And
Yes.
thanks for being in District 6.
Yes, so thank you. Thank you so much. Now comes to the time for recognition of persons wishing to address the council. If you wish to do that, please line up at this podium. And Mr. Attorney, could you please read the rules?
Yes, sir. And we're getting closer. At the end of each council business meeting, the chair will recognize members of the public that wish to address the council. And here's your rules. Each speaker wishing to address can only be recognized at the microphone up front that's provided for that purpose. Can't have more than 3 minutes to speak, and you can only talk to the council upon matters within their legislative and quasi-judicial authority and not upon matters that are not under their authority or regulated by other governmental bodies or agencies. Don't engage in any vulgar or obscene language nor use the floor to personally attack or personally denigrate others, and address the council as a whole, not make comments directed towards individual council members. And lastly, don't engage in disorderly conduct or disrupting a public meeting, which is prohibited under Tennessee law. Someone commits that offense if they substantially obstruct or interfere with the meeting by physical action or verbal utterance with the intent to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting. Ma'am, go right ahead. We're getting to the point of where we'd like to hear you.
Right. You state your name and district number.
Okay. My name is Corey Bisher. I live in East Brainerd. However, something happened yesterday that just thoroughly made me upset. First of all, let me stop. Demetrius family first, no matter what. So there was a older man whose property got taken through property taxes. He didn't pay his taxes because he kept getting fined because his lawn needed mowing. And so you guys kept sending somebody else, kept sending somebody out to mow his lawn. He was worried about not being able to pay that fine because he thought that the city could take his property because he kept getting these fines. Well, he didn't pay it, and he paid that, but he didn't pay his taxes. His property got taken away. Come to find out, they sold his house at a tax sale. The redemption period was that year. He knew nothing about it. He's 72 years old. His property was, I say it was stolen from him, but it was taken from him, and someone purchased it. He has until June 30th to pay that $23,000. A week ago, that person came and took all of his things out of his house, threw them in the dumpster, told him that he no longer lived there, and thinks that she's going to get away with it. She's not. However, what I would like for the council to please consider, you guys, there are a lot of programs and services that you say are to help elderly and to help seniors with things like mowing their lawn or understanding how taxes work or all of those things, but none of those things work for him. In order for him to get violations, someone had to call and someone had to come to his house. I would ask that you guys put in place with the code enforcement that someone actually has to go to that door and say, do you need help? They would have seen that he was a 72-year-old man. The solution, I will tell you the solution. I work with youth through the city of Chattanooga that will mow lawns for elderly, veterans, and single-family houses. Absolutely free. I just need to know the addresses. I know whoever it is that takes those violations, they can call me at any point and I will send a kid absolutely free to those houses, because it should not be an issue of, should I pay for my medicine, pay for my food, pay for my electricity, or pay for fines put on that person by the city. I think that you guys have programs for the city, for citizens, but they're absolutely no good if the people that actually use them don't know how to find them. I'm an able-minded person that can get on a computer, that can navigate you guys' city website, so I can find it some kind of way. People like this gentleman that need the services, those are the people that you guys need to actually learn how to reach. That's all.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Smith, and we're talking about the same man. He's my neighbor. And he literally was put on the end of his driveway. I mean, all of his belongings put out there and everything. And I filmed it, and it was time-stamped in April. But going to say that, he ended up being homeless. And I tried my best to help him, and I did eventually help him, but not with any kind of agency that was set up for homeless people at all, because it is so difficult to try to get any help through 211 or homeless agencies. It is, and to go through all the hoops and stuff. Somebody is, well, I'm not young, but younger than him, of course, and can navigate the internet and can drive and have a car and everything. It just seemed impossible. Almost like you just want to throw your hands up. I can imagine what it's like to be homeless without a vehicle, trying to do this on the bus, and not knowing how to navigate the internet or how to reach out for help. And when I did, but eventually I had to get a private investor to help him. And they did rent him a place and everything. But somebody has got to do something about the homeless, because they want help. They just don't know how to get help. And me trying to reach out and trying to get this man help, it just felt impossible. That I just wanted to give up and just throw my hands up. It's just so many, red tape and hoops to jump through. I can imagine trying to do it without a home, without a telephone. And I just think, and someone should have told him that and I don't know why they didn't, because he qualified for that tax relief, because he is like 72 years old. And this man lived in that same house since he was 10 years old. Lived there 62 years, and he's lost his house. And it was sold at the auction, but the private investor is supposed to be helping. But I just don't understand why anybody didn't tell him he qualified for tax relief at his age. Nobody reached out, told him anything. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Smith, will you stay up? Councilman Ledford?
Yes, ma'am. If you
Ms.
don't
Smith?
mind, I heard the word East Brainerd. Can you provide me an address?
He doesn't live in East Brainerd, I live in East Brainerd.
You live in East
But she
Brainerd.
can give you the address.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that, but I
Yeah,
still,
no, she can give
yeah.
you the address. I
If,
just personally live in East Brainerd.
He lives in District 2. He lives in Forest Highland Circle, 3922 Forest Highland Circle, or did, that's the home he owned.
okay, yeah, if it's someone from administration could circle around here at the end of this meeting, I think that would be appropriate. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. All right, Mr. Bell. Take us on out.
Monty Bell, the homeless journalist, the gray-haired fox. That word homeless, I don't know if I understand the definition of that word, although I've been out here on these streets 30 years. I don't know if I understand the meaning of homelessness, and I've been out here 30 years. Let me say it one more time. I don't know if I know the meaning of homelessness, and I've been out here 30 years. And I've had some of you up here 30 years, directing the path of Monty Bell, the homeless journalist, the gray-haired fox, that man with the billion-dollar voice. And I've been cooking up some stories for you. I'm going to cook up another one. This time it's going to make a direct hit. I made a call to my favorite city council representative, and that's Councilwoman Coomrod, although I'm not in her district. She and I have made history, and we're going to continue to make history. I want to know about this red building that's across from the 614 Salvation Army on Macaulay Avenue. It's also known as the Doctor's Building at 744 Macaulay Avenue. It's across the street from the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, also located on Macaulay Avenue. But when all of you stole my book, and all of my legal documents, it ended up at 719 Andy Holt Tower on the campus of the University of Knoxville, UTK. We're going to discuss these quasi-contracts you all have. None of these contracts you all have been engaged in are real contracts. You've got what's called a quasi-public, and that seems to be what I run into downtown every time I'm down there, a public that's bought and paid for by the higher-ups. Monty Bell has $211 billion, $34 million for the fraud on the entire 11th Judicial District Court in the state of Tennessee. And you're going to pay because you've got a deadline coming up next week. You all had me arrested out here and charged me with several crimes. Every one of those crimes are under what's called fraud on the court. What we're going to discuss next week is the Rule 11 under 7 and not 6. And you're going to find out that you can't exchange, refer, interchange, or do any of that to Monty Bell without my permission. I want my money.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bell. All right, council, I don't see anyone else wishing to address the council. What's your pleasure? Meeting adjourned.